Welcome back, Durrick. And we're joined today by your brother Daryl as well, who's there with you. So, very excited to get into your week this past week because it has been your week off.
Mm.
So, curious to hear about that, what you guys have done, and also, to really kind of get Daryl's opinion on your whole treatment and the whole time that you've been in the USA and what this has all been like. So, yeah, I'll hand it over to you. Let us know what the last week's been like.
Yeah, cool. So we finished off at the clinic on the Friday of last week, and that was just having a conversation around testing. I started collecting the RSOTA samples for the follow-up, which will start again next week. And this week, really, in terms of treatment, this week all it was a continuation of the chelation treatment to get the heavy metals out. And I took a aqua detox, they call it over here, a foot bath, just to keep removing toxins from the body. Nothing too strenuous there. That's as complicated as it got. The aqua detox bath, which was quite interesting. Every time I do those, I'm getting less and less gunk in there, which is a good sign. So that means my body's clearing stuff out quite well. In terms of the week, we took it. We wanted to get out and about because obviously we've been quite cooped up, as everybody has in this world, quite cooped up in our apartment. So we hired a car and decided to get out and see what we could see. So predominantly we've just been for drives. We haven't gone out and contacted or interacted with too many people at all. The highlight being on Thursday we went for a drive to the Appalachians, which is something I've always wanted to do but never thought I'd get there. It was a long drive, but it was nice to get out and be in the wide open spaces with some mountains and some paddocks that we could just go and lie in for half an hour and get some sunshine and touch the ground. So that was really nice. In terms of the week, the first few days were just about actually recovering. So I didn't want to do much but sleep. Sleep and just relax and just let the body chill out. I didn't realize how tired I was. And I didn't realize how much effort it takes to do the supplementation, to do the program. There wasn't much downtime for my brain while you're doing this stuff. You're not thinking about too much other than just keeping on top of your supplement regime, of being on time at the clinic to get the treatment started. And then when you get home, having that break of a half an hour, and it may be 2 hours of just chilling out, getting your dinner ready, and then get into the evening cycle with the various treatments there. So this week it was nice to have a bit of a break, I must admit. The supplementation got a bit out of whack through the week as I just been in a non-structured or non-routine period. It was hard to keep on top of the stuff. I've done the best I can. I'm not upset with myself. It was just a bit more of a challenge. But this week, the last few days have primarily been around emotional issues coming up that have probably been a bit suppressed through the 6 weeks I've been here of intensive treatments, of just getting into a new environment, getting into this treatment program and focused on that and getting that all right. So things came up in me this last few days, and just talking to a few of my friends around via text and stuff, seems like a lot of people are starting to just encounter a few more emotional issues this week than they have had, or probably rearing their head more than they have been. They've always been there, but just starting to show some real world frustrations in your own life about how to deal with those. So that's where I've been. So yeah, not too difficult in terms of a week. Yeah, that's the week. I mean, I'll get into the emotional stuff a bit later as we go through this conversation.
Well, so just briefly with regards to that emotional stuff, is it more present emotional things versus, during treatment, it was a lot of sort of like past emotional things that were coming up during the treatment?
Yeah, good point. A lot of the stuff that came up during the treatment, especially with the EVOX, was all around family tree and people in my life. What I noticed over the last few days was it's more focused around my expectations of those people. So the treatment that I went through with EVOX was all identifying the key messages from those people's lives of what was resonating for me. Whereas this last few days, it's like the the brain gets tuning a little bit, and you start to sit in your own stupor a little bit. And I started to see how my perception and my expectations of what a relationship with anybody should be like. And so when those expectations aren't met, then I start to get very frustrated and go, well, why is this not happening? And I've seen it quite commonly through my life. It's not just, and I think we all do this. I know with some of the development programs I've done, we uncover how your expectations of a situation can quite often drive your emotional response to it. So with my expectations of people, I then go into a situation blanket and think this is what it means. And in reality, something else could be going on, and I miss that, what is really going on, because I believe this was happening. So every decision I make is based on a reference from my expectation of what it should be. But in reality, I should have just let things flow a bit more with anybody, and just let things take its course without trying to drive it. And that's important for me, not just in the specific last few days, but my whole journey has been about trying to get out of my mindset of what the right answer must be, and allow what is in front of me to be in front of me and make decisions on that, rather than trying to put expectations on what that must be and how I should respond in that situation. So I'm still working through that. I'm still a bit grumpy and agitated at the moment as I work through that issue. I think I've understood why I had those expectations, but it's an ongoing process. I'm just being real. It's like I've been distracted with this treatment because just keeping it in process. But now I'm going, well, actually, what am I thinking? I've got a bit of breathing space, and there's an issue inside of me that's hurting a little bit, and it's agitating me a bit. So how do I address that, and what is it? And for me, the way I tend to work through that, I've got a whole lot of routines. I've used EVOX, and I've used emotional release techniques. Sometimes it just requires me crawling into my cave and sitting there and going, what's the emotions inside, letting them out. And then once they are out, having the ability to be on a clear platform, a clearer head, and going, what do I really believe around all this? And just sit quietly, or go for a walk, or just be in my own head for a bit, just concentrating on how I can find a more constructive way through that. And that's where I'm at the moment.
Awesome. Well, Daryl, I really appreciate your willingness to come and talk with us today. Great to see you again. It's been years since I saw you.
It has.
So,
Yes.
I'd really love to know. I mean, I've heard from Durrick, his kind of story of getting here to treatment. I was wondering if you could maybe just give us a little bit of background on how you came to decide to accompany him, and what that process was like for you, deciding to kind of leave New Zealand at such a precarious time, and to join him on this journey.
Yeah. It was. Yeah, I don't normally go a lot into interrogating my own motivations, but it did come up. It needed to be done. The big thing is that, for one, in a purely logical sense, he couldn't get the treatment without somebody here to support him.
Yeah.
Number two, he's my twin brother. So there's a connection there that is beyond sort of a lot of what we understand as a normal relationship.
Sure.
And I just felt the appropriate thing was to actually accompany him on the journey so he could complete what he needed to do. Because it's also something our family is complete with Durrick. Having lost our sister already, knowing things, it just became an easy decision to make. There was people interrogating and asking me, was I sure about what I was doing? But it was the right thing to do. Surreal, but the right thing to do. It came down to being one of the people I treasure the most in the world, and needing to help him where I could.
Awesome. And what has it been like to be in North Carolina while he's going through the treatment? Do you go to the clinic every day with him? What's your day look like while he's going through treatment?
The first week, I didn't go for the first week with him. And then I realized, and I was sitting there going, hold on a second, I really should be there helping them because he's got a whole lot of information coming at him, a whole lot of new circumstances. Not to be able to shape how he feels about it, but to understand more so that when he's talking, I can help. I became aware of that quite quickly, so joined him when I could, as soon as I could. As soon as I got over my misunderstanding.
Just in your own defence there, though, we were under quarantine issue at that time, so we were being responsible, and having a lot of people in the clinic at that time wasn't constructive to the clinic. So it wasn't about not wanting to be there. It was about there was requirements for us to do certain things when we got here.
Hmm. And then, okay, so back to Daryl. What has it been like to observe? I mean, have you noticed changes in Durrick week by week as you're there with him, or what has it been like to watch the effects of the treatment?
So in some sense, I'm actually getting to know my brother better because you actually see him engaging in what needs to happen and then assimilating and understanding it, working through that and going, this is what I need to do. So seeing some of the mechanisms behind his decisions. And I guess a lot of the time I'm sitting there thinking for myself, what would I be doing in the situation? And I'm saying, yeah, okay. Durrick's very self-driven, self-determined. So I'm not going to sit there and tell him he's not doing what he should be. But we'll try and help share and understand what he's going through to be able to go, we could maybe try or look at this differently. The coercion doesn't work, eh?
Yeah. No, good point. Good point. So, Durrick, you had mentioned earlier that you, in this last week, that you found the regiment of the supplements was maybe compromised a little bit, and I'm just wondering if how that has impacted the way that you look at continuing to take supplements when you're at home, and is there a sort of renewed sense of needing to organize or form some sort of structure to maintain this regularity?
Yeah, so in terms of missing some of the supplements that I was meant to be taking, I made sure that by the end of the day I got them all in somehow at some time. But what I found was by being out and about and living, actually getting out and seeing things and being outside walking, I was actually living, and so the supplements were secondary to what I was doing because I was so being in the moment that it didn't cross my mind. I don't wear a wristwatch, and I try not to carry a phone around with me too much, so I wasn't consciously aware of the time. So I ended up missing some of the supplement takes, but I did make sure I had them all in by the end of the day. In terms of organisation going forward, even during the week, as the week progressed, and I started to acknowledge that being out of routine meant that I had to be more aware of when I took them. I've got supplement capsules, the organisers that you get, the dispensers that you can buy from the dollar store or whatever. I've got those, and I've got them labelled off with times, and so just making sure I carry one of those in my pocket. So when I fill my pocket, time to take a supplement, and just doing it when I can, and not being so regimented that if I miss it, well, the world's going to fall over, because it's not. Because this is a long-term progression of taking supplements. Just because you miss one doesn't mean your life's going to end, and not getting caught up in the fear of that. It's the trend. If you take 95 or 90% of your supplements on time, your body's going to show improvements because you're doing more good than you're doing bad, if that's to put it simply. So in terms of going forward, just making sure that I've got those supplement capsules in place. When I leave here, my supplement load will be probably still quite high, especially for the first couple of months. But when I'm back in the normal world, my supplement intake should drop off, because it's the intensity of it. Because the treatment with the chelation takes the minerals and supplements and vitamins out of your body, the clinic's very aware that they need to be topping it up on top of it, so that you're not depleting your body, because it starts to do funny things to your body if you deplete it. So that's why it's so intense. And so we had the conversation with the doctor and just said, what's the forward progress look like? Well, you won't be taking all of this as you go forward, because this is an intense period of time to get you back to another level where you can live properly. And it's your responsibility when you come out of this to make sure that you're holding that level by taking supplements that you need, by eating the right food, by being aware of your emotional state, your spiritual state, your environment. So yeah, so it's not going to be too hard going forward. It's just that. Plus, the key thing was, I'm tired of taking supplements. When I first started this week, I just needed a break. My brain is just full on overloaded. I'm not sure. I'll keep taking them, but I just needed a break. It was just too much. So I just took a few days where I wasn't 100% onto it and got myself back to a point where my mental state was fresh, and then I can get back into it better.
Is it part of their usual protocol to give people a week off in between, this sort of phase 1 and phase 2 of treatment?
No, so what normally happens is you do the first round of treatment and some people go straight back into it, but most people go away for a few weeks, do some more tests, they do some more samples, and then you get back into it when they decide it's the right time. Because I know people that I started treatment with, they've gone away and they're coming back now once in a few weeks once they get their finances sorted. So the reason why they've encouraged me to stay is because they say that recommended for me with my stage diagnosis, I should stay. But because of the world situation, they're saying that the chances of getting back into the country afterwards are probably quite slim. So take advantage of the time that I've got here. So this is going to be a financial stretch to be here, but we'll do it because you take opportunities when they're in front of you. And the other thing is, they are saying to me that I'm responding really excellent, was the word they used, responding really well. So my body should be ready to go into that next stage. And so go into it and keep it going while I've got the opportunity to. And then when I get home, I can back off it a bit and not have to have the full intensity that I need. So it's not normal, but it's making the best of the situation.
Do you think that there's things that you've learned during this week that will influence the way that this next stage of treatment unfolds?
Yeah. One of the things that I read when I first started the whole treatment was around your purpose for living. And this week, I got quite involved in researching what the current situation in the world is around government policy, World Health Organization policy, and a variety of doctors who hold differing perspectives. And I must admit that got me quite frustrated because I'm starting to form an opinion that is of the mindset that there needs to be more work to be done to convince people of the path forward. I don't feel like it's not the right path forward. I don't believe it's the fully thought out, although a lot of the media would have us believe it has been. So anyway, that has inspired me in some ways to go, no, there needs to be people out there able to share information from an evidence-based perspective. Now, the reason why I want to share is that I've gone completely against what was recommended to me. And I'm not completely out of the woods yet, but I'm getting close. And I did it because it was the right thing for me. I've talked to a number of people who have been on this journey, the cancer journey, and when they listened to their doctors and went through processes because that's what was in front of them and they made the decision to do it. But halfway through the process, they think, this is not working for me, it's not right. And one person I respect immensely, 7 years of no evidence of disease after being told by a doctor that if she doesn't do chemo or radiation, she's going to die pretty quickly. She's living a full and healthy life. Now, I know people personally that have gone against what the current medical system has established and seen amazing benefits in it. And now, if that's possible for some people to have a full and healthy life following their own judgment, then that's a possibility for everybody. It's not something you take lightly by any means. But why aren't we talking about that in our world? Why aren't we talking about the other options? At the moment, what's getting put in front of us is a very definite option of this is what the world's going to do. And it's you dig a bit deeper than just the surface level of what we're presented in the media, and it's horrifying what's going on underneath. And I know people have been had personal experiences of injuries from following advice that is not conducive to health. Now, that's a pretty black and white statement and could be seen as quite controversial. But that's not my intent. My intent is that in this world, we need healthy debate and discussion, not one perspective. And I know with what I've been through and the way I see my body respond when I do a different approach. Example, high dose vitamin C. It's lambasted out there as saying it's ridiculous. I know people that have done that as part of their cancer treatment and it's worked. And I know in my own life, I do it. I do it part of the treatment here at the clinic because I'm seeing benefits from it. But because they say there's not enough scientific evidence behind it, we can't do it. Now, I'm not saying somebody should stand up and just say, I've got a concoction here, you go and take it. And that can happen in this world. I'm not saying just go willy-nilly and follow what somebody else says. I'm not saying that. But do your own research. Figure out what you need to know about this stuff. Because there's opportunities under every rock to be able to find something that can help you improve your health. So in terms of a short answer to your question, my future is to share what I've experienced, what I know other people have experienced. And that's all we can do, because that's how as a society we progress. If we have one view of how the world is and what it needs to be, we're never going to progress as human beings. That's never the way we've existed. Somebody decided aeons ago to put a backpack on their back and go for a walk and see what they could see in another part of the world. And then they encountered a different race of people with different customs and different beliefs. And that helped them to form more of who they are, which then they took away and shared with somebody else. That's how we learn. We learn from each other. This whole need to have an authority above us telling us how it all must be is an old way of doing things, because that authority is only put there based on the rights of the masses. Anyway, that's pretty political stuff. But I'm not saying we don't need authority structures. We want somebody to help govern our lands and make it free and make it so that we have resources and that we have the ability to live in a safe community. Granted, that's all good stuff. But the right for medical freedom, that's a big one to take away from people, because at the end of the day, that comes down to sovereignty of your body. Who knows what's right for you? Now, a doctor's going to have a pretty good stab at it because I've done a lot of science and research and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's your body, not anybody else's. You choose what goes into it. And that's what frustrates me about my journey, as I was never aware that I had the right to say no. In some countries, you don't. So, I don't know, that's a pretty big statement, but I just feel like, the world, and it's not, might just be my microcosm of the world, is ready to hear different perspectives. And I believe we're in a time of massive shift, massive change. The old structures don't work. You've only got to look at the death rates, the obesity rates, the cancer rates in this world. They're skyrocketing. So if they're skyrocketing and getting larger all the time, something's not working. Something is not working in this world. If we keep paying more and more, I know in New Zealand, we always have debates about the health system needing more money. Or how much do you keep putting into it? And people are still getting sicker. Something's not lining up. I don't know what the answer is to that, but I certainly want to go and find out some more. There's my answer.
So going back to this week off that you've had, I'll pose this one to Daryl. Have you guys had a chance to do anything sort of recreational or more personal with the extra time this week?
I think the big thing this week is that we haven't had the fixed time that we had to get to the clinic with. So technically what I've been doing is just getting a little bit more sleep.
Nice. Nice.
So the drive, going outside and actually driving somewhere to see. I mean, this is a beautiful country. Mm-hmm. There's fantastic people here too, and I'd like to meet more of them, but with the conditions and being responsible, that'll open up later. A lot of the time's introspective at the moment. So I'm having a holiday every day. I go out and listen to myself and understand what I'm doing. So giving myself something, and I guess my time to actually hear myself without a lot of other conditions around me, and I guess to be in a situation with Durrick and see where he is. I'm finding that the world's quite insular, and it depends on how I approach it and what I choose to treat myself and how I choose to treat myself. It's a glorious world, or it's raining. So a short answer is that that's been just listening to myself and hearing what I have to think about where I am, what I could be doing better and get more enjoyment from wherever I am in the moment.
Wow.
So
that's awesome, man. That's great. Okay, so Durrick, as you approach this second round of treatment, is there anything different that you can expect from the first round as far as the treatment goes?
Not that I'm aware of. So far, everything's just been lined up the same as the first one. It's just the doses of the treatments will be higher because the body's more responsive to it because it's already been in there. The soda treatments, the key indicator of what's going on. I haven't actually asked, but I suspect the dosage will go up with that because the last two that I had, the body didn't respond. It just went, oh, that was okay, then that was that. No real big deal. But the first two that I had quite a response to. So I suspect the dosage will go up on that. And I'll have a clearer view of some of the blood panel work because now we've got 3 sets of blood works around the cancer markers. So that's the T cells and stuff. So we'll start to see a trend there of what's going on. To date, the bloods we do every week have been showing a good trend upwards. Really, it's just getting the body into a healthy framework, a healthy range of levels for various bodily functions and blood levels and mineral levels, because once that's there, then the body can do the rest. I suspect the first time around that I didn't know what to expect with the treatment in terms of I was kind of just at the mercy of what they were saying to me. I'm taking it in and listening to it. Going forward, now that I know what we do every week, I can probably be a bit more interactive in terms of asking questions about, well, what's this mean, that mean? I'm not the most, by nature, I sort of observe more than I ask questions, but I haven't really had, I tend to do experience and then I can turn around and ask questions about it. So that's the only difference really. I don't see much changing apart from the final week. We will pretty quickly be wrapping up and jumping on an airplane to get back to New Zealand because flights are very, very limited, but that's about it.
So, Daryl brought up some great points there about, having the opportunity to just say catch up on sleep. Is that something that you've also had the opportunity to do this week?
A good point. Yes, because during the treatment round, I had to take supplements at I think I've mentioned this before, at 11 p.m., 3 a.m. and 7 a.m. So I have to wake up, but I wasn't even going to sleep before 11 because I need to wake up and have the supplements. So they said I didn't have to do that. I could streamline my supplements so that I could take them just during the day, not in the evening. So yes, I got to sleep right through. Huge. And the thing about sleeping in, some mornings I've just laid in bed. I haven't wanted to get up. I go, what's the best thing I can do in this moment? And just laying in bed's the answer. So I've done a lot of that. So I'm feeling better in that regards through doing that. So sleep's been huge, and yeah, sleep's been huge.
So Daryl also mentioned the opportunity this week to realize, or a kind of a self-examination, an opportunity to maybe reflect on himself, and so curious if you have also kind of taken or had the opportunity this week to maybe confront things, to see things within yourself that maybe during the course of treatment were there, but you didn't feel like you had the energy to be able to confront.
The agitation with other people is what was coming up during treatment. When people try to lay a point of view on me, I used to be quite defensive, and I used to get argumentative, whereas now I'm not quite so much. I still get, I can still be argumentative, but less so. I had ignored that. I just kind of brushed it off. But what I've found is that as I interact with more people, with the opening up of people, of the communities, I am aware that that's just brushing it under the carpet. It's not a good perspective. And so how I interact with other people and how I respond to criticism is certainly something that I've been working on the last few days. And that kind of fits in line with the expectations I have of how people should be. If they're not meeting the expectation of what I have of them, or what I'm expecting, I have pictured in my mind, then I would get frustrated. But in reality, I just realizing that it's just more about talking to that person and seeing where they're at, understanding who they are, rather than trying to put something on top of them in terms of my own interpretation of their belief system, their perspective, their knowledge. That's what's been coming up, and that's just to add to that, with friends that I've got, they seem to be going through a similar sort of thing. Is that there seems to be a frustration level growing in all of us, and it could be just because we've been locked down for 6 to 8 weeks, whatever it is in your area. But I know that what's been given to me right now is a huge opportunity for learning, and that's why the last few days have been about confronting that expectation of other people in my life, rather than, and that's required me to go pretty deep. And I must admit, I've shed a few tears over this. Over the last few days, I've just want that emotion out of me, because it's not constructive to be in there. While that pent up emotion's inside of me, unexpressed, that causes my body problems physically. I'll start to get aches and pains in my body when it's unexpressed. And so me having a cry, I might jump in the shower and have a cry, or I might just say I might lie on my bed and have a cry, is my way of letting my body express what it needs to, so that I can then have a clearer head to move forward. And I just want to share that a lot of people, especially guys, have a perception that crying's weak and that you should be tough and strong. And certainly in New Zealand, you shouldn't cry. And over the last few years in the media and stuff, you'll start to see some of our superheroes on the sports field shedding a tear in public. I actually encourage it, because it's a sign of authenticity. Because there's emotions inside of us, and our emotions and our way of living have been suppressed for so long that they bottle up inside of us. They will come out with strong emotions. But I liken it to a deer. When a deer is startled, it will run and run and run and run, and then it will stop when it's in a safe area. And when it stops, it sits down and it shakes. And it shakes until all that shaking is gone. That's the expression of its emotions. That's fear, anxiety. And then when that's all stopped shaking, gets up and starts eating again. Life's all good. But us human beings don't do that release mechanism. We hang on to it, stuff it down, and then we have physical chronic problems in our bodies. So that's a long-winded way of just saying that, yeah, I've been able to deal with some of the issues that I didn't really deal with while I was going through the treatment. What I will say, though, is that I've done a lot of emotional work, and I used to search it out every day, trying to get something new to work on when I first started this, and I've had a lot to let go of. I've got to the point now where I'm not searching it out anymore, because I'm trusting that the emotion will come up when it's time to express it and deal with it at that moment. And that's interesting, because I have a lot of friends who are into figuring out their emotional release, and they'll send me messages just saying that, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And asking me questions about what are you still holding on to inside yourself. And they're quite right. I've always got something I'm holding on to inside myself, because all of us do. I think the only ones that don't are probably the ones that are dead, or some divine person like the Dalai Lama or something like that. But I'm not searching it out, because part of my beauty is my imperfections. And part of my life is about uncovering that when it's time to uncover that. It'll happen when it's time to. You don't have to go forcing a lot of the stuff. And that's the way I live my life, is forcing this emotional discovery, because that's what's right. I've got to be the cleanest person I can be. I'm not going to get it all done in this lifetime. Nobody will. But when I relax and step back from having to figure everything out right away, I start to be more in the moment, and I start to be happier. Because if we're continually searching for something that's inside of me that's not right, that's how I judge myself. And my sister is always on my case about, when do you stop judging yourself and figuring out what's inside of yourself and actually just start living? So I appreciate her comments. They ring in my ears quite often. Don't tell her that, because she's right. But it's a matter of expressing that, and realizing that because I'm focused on this anger or this emotional issue inside of me, I'm actually missing what's right in front of me. So that's where I've a lot of words to say. Yeah, I've had time to catch up on some stuff inside of me.
During the course of your treatment, and since we've been doing these videos, I'm curious if you've heard, if you've gotten any kind of feedback from people in regards to the videos and in regards to, your story, and maybe if you could share some of that.
Sure. The feedback that I've got so far, one of the probably more a critique rather than criticism or feedback, but just that I've mentioned a few times in our videos that I've come from nothing and I've risen up and then come down and I've had nothing. My way of saying nothing financially, I can't compare myself, and you and I have discussed this offline, I can't compare myself to somebody in Africa who's got nothing, or somebody in India who's got nothing. But in this Western world, I've come from a pretty low world, where we didn't have very much growing up. My parents worked hard, and financial situations with global changes took a lot of that from us. But so I didn't have nothing. I've always had a roof over my head, somewhere to sleep, and food in my belly. So I've had loads. So I just wanted to make that point. The other thing is, some people have said, well, you've had a lot of other treatments. How come I haven't mentioned those? There are a lot of treatments I've had. I've had homeopathy, which has helped me a lot. I've done family constellations, which has helped me a lot with that homeopath. I've had flintlock release. I've had kinesiology. I've had aqua detox. I've had bioresonance. There's so many that I've had that I just haven't been able to share and say thank you to everybody for that. I did start off at some point in the past trying to go through all the treatments that I've had, just give my experiences of it and what I thought. So maybe I need to do that as just as a way to express my thanks to those people, because this journey has certainly not been all me. It's been a lot of people have helped me on this, and very much have taken a lot out of their own personal time and expertise to help me to progress. Other than that, people like them. They like the way that we communicate. They like the way that we are just sharing perspectives. And it's a nice way to be able to communicate to a number of people what's actually going on, so that I don't have to spend all my time getting tired responding to people individually, although I try to, but I'm not perfect at it. So good feedback. I think, as you and I have said, we're not quite sure where these will go. We just are doing what's coming to us, and none of this is scripted. It's just what's fresh in the moment. So just keep going with that and see what happens with it.
That you brought up, I mean, this idea of the multiple treatments, and how you do different things and they build on each other. And, I can really relate to that as well, because often I'll find myself talking to people about maybe what I'm currently involved in. But for me, it's important for me to remember that there's been like a whole journey, a whole journey to get to what I'm currently at. And when I start to look at all those factors that have allowed me to be in the position I currently am in, it doesn't take away from my excitement of what is currently happening, but it seems that to really try to articulate to somebody there's just so much that goes into where I'm at right now. It's not just the things that are currently happening in my life. And, it's a valid point that whoever, brought that up to you, and I don't know what the solution for that is. Obviously, every person is on a journey, and everything does build on the next thing. I don't know. It's just something that I think about a lot in my own life, is that I can really kind of focus on what is happening to me currently, but just sharing that isn't the whole story, and there's so much more that goes into, where we currently find ourselves. Can you maybe go into a little bit more detail about some of the things that that you explored prior to this treatment?
Yeah, sure. I went to a naturopath, and pretty soon after I got diagnosed with the cancer diagnosis back in October 2018, I went straight to a naturopath. I was seeing the doctor as well as going to the naturopath. And she took me through a naturopathic route to give me supplementation to help alkalize my body, to take it from acidic nature to an alkalized nature. And she was brilliant, because what she gave me that a doctor didn't was hope. The doctors very much said, this is what you've got, and sorry about that, and this is the only option. And that's the demeanor that I felt. Whereas the naturopath, and this is what you'll see a lot of medicine say, that people give you false hope, but hope's all you have sometimes. So this lady helped me to get through my mindset of there is a hope here that I can get out of this, and that was hugely needed at that time. My auntie, who's Gwyneth Evans, she's a homeopath. She helped me. I had conversations with her, and she gave me some homeopathic remedies to work through. One of the big things she helped me with is to keep my mindset right. She was acting as my coach, and was helping me to keep focus on what my body was telling me, because although I'd learned what my body was telling me beforehand, I don't have the medical knowledge or the bodily systems knowledge to be able to make a proper assessment of what's going on. I can acknowledge something's happening in my body, but what do you do? And there's simple solutions out there to a lot of this stuff that people who are in these fields know. So that was a big one. Another one was when we sold the house to enable this to happen, to be able to get over here. There was a lady that was very important to that process. Her name was Andrea Snee. She helped me. Neither of Daryl and I would have been able to get through that situation without her. She was immensely valuable in terms of giving us expertise to help us through a situation we didn't know about. At the end of the day, we're the ones that called the shots, but I couldn't have done what I did without her. I don't know if it's a fair comment if you think the same thing, Daryl, but that she's a woman that's allowed something to happen for us by helping us, by being who she is. And then my family have just been hugely supportive, because they have been there. My sister and brother-in-law let me live in their house and let me be outside and help with the garden, and to give me space to be able to get through my emotional stuff and put my good practices in place of meditation and yoga every day. And their kids, to even have me in their home is a big thing. How do you? I can't express how much that means to me, to be able to take the pressure off me of not having to live in the back of a car somewhere. It was huge. My parents just giving me emotional support whenever I needed it to be able to work through it. My friends like yourself, Mark, who just to chat every now and then, to catch up and say, how are you and what's your view of the world, to refresh that I'm not completely out of left field, or I'm not doing this by myself, has been hugely refreshing. And Joanne Bean's another woman that's helped me with that. Julie Millett, Alicia Alibi, Noreen Benning, just Lynn Piercy. Like, I've got a list. I've got no ends of people that have been supportive in this. I can't name it. Ry Lashewski. Like, it's just wow. there's so many people. And treatments, what's funny though is the thing that I cherish the most is just sitting in nature, going to the beach and jumping in the water. I wouldn't have found that if I hadn't been on this journey or I hadn't met the people I've met. Yeah, so there's so many people. One of the biggest things I found was just getting into the ocean helped my body heal. Now, when you talk to some scientists, because not all of them believe this, because science is not conclusive, when you're in the ocean, there's a pH balancing in your body, and there's protons, negative ions and stuff come from the ocean into your body, which makes you feel better. Well, there's a science behind something that intuitively, when I jump in the water, I feel good. So why don't I do it more? So I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't met a scientist who said this is what's happening. So anyway, lots of things I've done beforehand: sweat lodges, meditations in the trees, group meditations. There's so many to list that I can't do it all. But there's some things that along that way, some things really stand out that have helped me, and some of those I've already mentioned with people. But the flintlock release with Jamie Matthews, I couldn't believe that physiologically I could express and feel such a shift in 45 minutes working with a man who just gently manipulates your body. Well, then I realized that physiologically your body needs to be assisted to heal. It's not all spiritual, it's not all emotional. There are things you can physically do through manipulation to be able to allow your body to fully function. Acupuncture. It's just having a doctor that is encouraging of you to do stuff that feels right for you. That's a huge thing. So anyway, I can keep going, but I'm not sure it's the right forum. Just to, I guess, to summarize all that, just a deep gratitude for the people that are in my life that have come into me to help this journey. None of us can do this alone. And when we start to feel isolated and separated from our fellow man and woman, that's when we know we're going downhill. That's when our society is going to start to fall apart.
Well, I mean, I'm so glad that this came up, though, in the conversation, because I feel like it's so important to reinforce that, there's not like one thing that's going to save you, or me or anyone. And it's certainly not going to happen if we're alone either, right? So it's about other people, and it's about keeping an open mind to a variety of different things, because, I have my own stories that resonate with what you're saying, in regards to, discovering that there's this whole physical element that I can be dealing with, and that by experiencing these physical releases of tension, that it's going to affect my ability to emotionally communicate with people and with myself. Like it's so interrelated, the spiritual and the mental and the physical and the emotional. And so often people kind of grab onto one thing and just say, this is the end all, and this is all I need to be focused on. Where you really have to kind of allow yourself to explore a variety of modalities and find out what complements one another. One of the things that you had brought up was, the mindset and the importance of recognizing that you can change your mindset. And we've chatted about this a bit before, but maybe just in the context of this conversation, maybe you could just talk about that a little bit. Why was it important for you to learn how to change your mindset, and what are the tools that you have to kind of ensure that your predominant mental attitude is one that supports your ideal state of health?
Well, here's an example of something. This might not be to everybody's taste, but we'll see. It's perceptions that we hold about things. So when I first started getting rectal exams, there's a whole lot of man issues that come up with that. Oh, nothing goes near your bum, that sort of stuff. And I was uncertain about what the way forward was with that. But then my mindset was whatever it was. It probably wasn't healthy, and I can get people can say, well, that's not the right approach to have. But what I'm saying is that that's the predominant mindset of a lot of people. You talk to most guys about getting a rectal exam to check for prostate cancer or whatever. Well, I don't like the finger. Well, you know what? I had to let go of that. Why did I have to let go of that? Because of the mental stress that it put on me of what does this mean about who I am? It doesn't mean anything about who I am. I'm in a situation where, one, I shouldn't be afraid of my body, but two, I'm getting medical assistance to figure out what's going on with my body. I've got to explore it, and somebody's got to help me explore it. So it's very, I wouldn't be able to do the treatments if I held on to the stigma that was a mindset issue about what it means to have this done. As I went through, when you get enough things put in places that you don't talk about, it doesn't matter anymore. My own beliefs around the human body have shifted because they had to. I had beliefs that were restrictive. You know, one thing I grew up with was because I was overweight when I was growing up, I'd never take my shirt off in public. And I was very reluctant to go for a swim because people would judge me because I was overweight and fat. Well, that's my own rubbish. What did that do? That mindset prevented me from having fun in that moment. When I realized that people see bodies all over the time, and half the time people aren't even interested in you because we're so focused on our own stuff that, oh, look at that person. And that's it, a fleeting thought, and then move on to the next thing. So I held back my own life and the ability to enjoy a river, go for a swim, to enjoy the beach, to get sunshine on my body, which is so healthy, because of a perception that I had that you don't take your shirt off because I'm overweight. Anybody should be able to take their shirt off, following the laws and all that sort of stuff. But it's a natural part of our body. So now with the coffee enemas, if you're rigid about your views about your bottom, then you can't do the coffee enemas. And yet the coffee enemas help me to clear toxins out of my body. And it's a process now. It's just, I'm not scared of my body like I used to be in terms of, well, you can't talk about certain things. You can't, you shouldn't touch things in your body. They're our human bodies, but that's a stigma that's come through us somehow. It's come through in family line, social conditioning, that your body is something that you don't understand at all because it's not right, whatever right means. So to answer your question, my mindset around what I perceive things to mean needed to shift, and that's kind of the expectations I was talking about earlier. I have expectations on what, and when I meet somebody at a gas station, for instance, if they don't say hello to me, then they're obviously, there's something I've done. So that was the old perception. And now the new perception is they don't say hello to me, so I look at them and go, I wonder what's going on in their world. It doesn't have to be this, oh, it's all my fault, I've done this. It's just, oh, the poor people. Now, a lot of strong people will tell you that's the way it should be. You should never be worried about what other people think about you. And I'm sharing this because I was like that, because so many people are like that. Just like that, worried about what other people perceive them to be, as opposed to just being your authentic self. And that's the thing I've really enjoyed about this. I talk a lot more than I used to. I've always been a bit of a talker, but I'll talk about issues that are more sensitive with people because, one, I want to find out. I want to have a proper conversation with people. I would never have done that in the past because my perception was you don't ask people about their personal lives. That's a perception. It's not a reality. Because quite often people actually want to talk about their personal lives because they're going through tough stuff and they want to share and get it out. And communication is one way human beings do it, verbally, physically, whatever. So my mindset has had to change massively. The biggest thing the biggest thing about all of this is the mindset from health happens to me to health is something I have control over. In the past, I thought all this stuff happened to me. But this sort of started to change when I met you guys back in 2012 in Canada. But moving through to now, I realize my state, my environmental state determines a lot of my health. And how's that important? You've already touched on this. When I was going through the treatment, my emotional focus was away from wasn't just focusing on, I was focused on the treatments and getting all that done, and I ignored some of the emotional stuff going on. It got harder and harder and harder to get through the process. I got more and more tired. I was ignoring my perspectives on stuff. When I started to, and I'm doing it now, as I start to release that, I start to get healthier. When I get healthier, my body gets healthier, my perspective of the world changes, the world's beautiful. And I've struggled to keep that perspective the whole way through because of the world situation. The more I find out about the world situation and go researching, the more it's affected my mental health. So at the moment, these last few days, I've gone downhill emotionally, but I'm releasing all those emotions that have been pent up because I know that I need to be healthy and happy. Happy is the key thing. My emotional state drives my health. So yeah, that's a lot of words again. I just
great points though,
it's just that our happiness is so crucial, and I've been swamped over the last week. I've tried to watch a lot of videos, but it plays havoc with my head, and try to keep up on the information. There's so much information out there, you just can't. And I start to get wound up and anxious inside and go, this is not, what's going on with this world? Because it's what's coming is not where I want it to go. And so that's not a healthy state to be. For me, the best state to be is be happy and healthy and enjoying the moment, because all the stuff's going on around us, but the sun's still shining, the birds are still singing. So why aren't I?
It's such an important point to reinforce is that our mental focus, affects our physical well-being. Yeah, such an important point. So to go back to Daryl here for a moment, I'm curious what it's been like for you to, watch your brother go through this process. And I'm asking that having had experienced cancer within family members as well, personally, and yeah, just what has it been like for you to sort of watch him go through this process and how he's dealt with it?
So the big thing for me has been awareness that life is fragile if we don't treat it with respect. Seeing Durrick address, he's been treating himself in terms of driving his own recovery for the last year and a half. Family's around and he's acknowledged a lot of people, but he's the central person in this, and he's acknowledged, he said, no, I'm not, this is not, it can't stay like it was, it's got to get better. And he's the one who's taken the ownership of that. The ownership, and it goes back to that sovereignty thing, that's what drives all of it. So I have huge admiration for my brother. And sometimes when you think you might lose something that's really important to you, like my brother, my father, who struggled for years, seeing the strength and determination in them, and it gets back to being self-reflective, is what am I doing? And it just holds that mirror up and goes, who am I honoring by living the life the way I'm living it? Not acknowledging my family, not talking as much as I am. To me, like, to draw a contrast between Durrick and I, in the family, I feel like a ghost because I've retreated away because I wouldn't show myself. Seeing Durrick's journey and seeing how he now responds to his body, he'll talk to anybody at the drop of a hat. Because there's that curiosity. I hid that, I shamed that from myself because I was scared about what other people would think. But truly stepping into your own life, your acknowledgement of who you are, and starting to scrape off the coal dust and see that we're a spark of the universe. We are powerful, immense beings. We're not here by chance. There's too much that has to happen for us to be by chance. So living a shallow life, not connecting with others, not examining your own life, leads to a trail of destruction, builds fear, builds concern. That's not how we're meant to be. So seeing Durrick's example of stepping beyond I guess, his own, well, family roles, social situations, and stepping beyond and actually going into the bigger light of who he is. It's pretty powerful. It's moving. I hope to be able to emulate more myself, because I know there's more to do with life, and Durrick's showing me more of what's possible.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Powerful, and I can also attest to the fact that I've been very inspired by watching Durrick's journey and the way that he's stepped up, and like you say, he has been the driver of his well-being and his healing in this process, and that's been really wonderful to watch and inspiring. So I would just want to offer to both of you, if you have sort of any final comments for today.
You first, Daryl.
Okay. This whole situation around the world and such, for me, it truly seems like the opportunity for us as a species, as sparks of divine, however we want to couch that, to expand beyond our current situation. Realize that things happen around us, and it's not necessarily our primary beliefs that shape what's actually happening around us. It only shapes how we perceive it. So taking that little bit of time to see what the person's saying to us, see how from their life point of view and what's triggering us around us, take a moment to go, I choose my reaction. I don't have to respond the old way. I choose my reaction. I even take time to understand what's triggered in me, because that's how we move forward. That's how we grow. It's because mastery doesn't come from responding the way we always have. It's seeing the situation for what it is without filters and primary beliefs that we've chosen, and actually stepping beyond that into anything's possible. I can love this moment, and I choose to love it more than I choose to stay in the dark. Yeah.
Well said.
Very well said. I just want to acknowledge Daryl. He's obviously my twin brother. He's been the person through my whole life I've talked to the most and shared with the most. I acknowledge his strength for when we decided to come to the States. The world had gone into shutdown, and I asked him, I said, you don't have to come, Daryl. This is a big decision to put yourself at risk health-wise to come and support me on the journey. I'm still going because I need to go, but it's your choice. And he just said no. He said there's no options. I'm coming. So I acknowledge Daryl for his strength on that, and just for being there all the time to talk to. I just want to, I guess my final thoughts is sometimes the people that we think are the hardest ones in our life to deal with are actually the biggest teachers. There are people that come into your life that challenge you immensely and show you different perspectives. And there's a couple have come into my life, or one in particular that came into my life in the last few years that has helped me to see the world in a completely different way. And she inspired me to see the possibilities of life, to see that there's a different way of living, to be curious and joyful of the moment. And even yourself, Mark, the difference of backgrounds and the difference of life experiences for you and I to come together and meet and have a conversation. Just as awkward as that was when we first met, because I wasn't sure what to make of you. I appreciate our friendship, and I wouldn't want it any other way, to be honest. And so the friendships that we have in our lives are important, and when we think people are our enemies, in reality they aren't. They're showing us a better way. So there's no need to be angry at anybody. And a final thought, we all chose this because of the way we live our lives. And when we realize that we have the ability to change the way we live our lives, the world changes for the better. But it just takes us looking at it ourselves. So that's my final thought. Thank you.
Well, thank you both for taking the time to have this conversation, and all the best for this next week, the beginning of a new round of treatment. And it'll be great to catch up with you again next Saturday and to hear how that first week went,
Awesome.
round 2. So again, thank you both, Daryl and Durrick.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
See you
Cheers,
next week.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.